My name is Daniel Harper, and I've never been able to sleep properly since that summer. It started after a minor surgery, nothing serious, just something that left me with a prescription for painkillers and strict instructions to rest. The pain wasn't unbearable during the day, but at night it became something else entirely. Sharp, relentless, impossible to ignore. I couldn't sleep for more than a couple of hours at a time without waking up in agony. So I developed a routine. Every 2 to 3 hours, I'd wake up, take a pill, drink some water, and try to fall back asleep before the pain came rushing back. After a few nights, my body adjusted in a strange way. I wasn't really sleeping anymore, just drifting in and out of short, restless cycles. Everything started to feel unreal, like I was constantly stuck between dreaming and being awake. That's when the noises began. The first few nights, I ignored them. Small things, tapping, scraping, faint thuds. I figured it was just the house settling or maybe a branch brushing against the siding. My room was on the ground floor facing the backyard, and there were a lot of trees back there. It made sense. But then, the sounds became more deliberate. One night, sometime around 3 a.m., I woke up to a dragging noise. Not loud, but steady, like something heavy being pulled slowly across a surface. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself it was nothing, but the sound didn't stop. It moved, inch by inch, across the length of the wall behind my bed. Then it stopped completely. I remember holding my breath, waiting for it to start again. Instead, there was a soft tapping. 3 taps, pause, then 3 more. It wasn't random. It was patterned, intentional. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding harder than it should have. My room was dark except for the faint glow from the streetlight outside my window. I turned my head slowly toward it. The tapping came again. This time, I realized where it was coming from. The window. I froze. There was no way someone could be at my window. The backyard was fenced, and beyond that was nothing but a stretch of overgrown land that led into a patch of woods. No street access, no reason for anyone to be back there. Still, the tapping continued. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I forced myself out of bed. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me not to go near that window, but I couldn't just ignore it. My mind kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a branch. Maybe something was hitting the glass. I stepped closer. The tapping stopped. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, slowly, something slid across the outside of the glass. Not a reflection, not a shadow. Something pressed against it. I couldn't make out details, just a vague shape moving unnaturally close to the window. My chest tightened. I reached for the curtain, hesitated for a second, then pulled it aside. There was nothing there, just darkness. The backyard looked completely empty. I let out a shaky breath, almost laughing at myself. My brain was fried from lack of sleep. That had to be it. I stood there for another minute, scanning the yard, but everything was still. Then, I heard it again. Not outside this time. Above me. A slow, dragging sound right on the ceiling. I stepped back instinctively, staring upward. The sound moved across the ceiling, from one side of the room to the other. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was clear. Something was up there, in the attic. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, aiming it at the ceiling as if that would somehow help. The sound stopped directly above me, and then came a low thump. Dust fell from the ceiling vent near the corner of the room. I backed away, my pulse racing. There was no way an animal that size could be up there. It sounded too heavy, too controlled. Before I could react, there was a sudden, violent scraping noise, like something clawing against wood. followed by a loud crack. The vent cover shifted, just slightly, but enough. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I ran out of my room, nearly tripping over myself, and sprinted down the hallway toward my parents' bedroom. I was shouting before I even reached their door. My dad woke up immediately, grabbing a flashlight and heading straight for the attic access in the hallway. I stood behind him, shaking, trying to explain what I'd heard, but the words barely made sense. He pulled the cord, and the attic hatch dropped down with a hollow creak. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he shined the flashlight up into the darkness. At first, there was nothing. Just insulation, beams, and shadows. Then something shifted. Deep in the corner of the attic, a figure moved. Not quickly, slowly, deliberately. It looked like a person, crouched low, barely visible in the dim light. Its limbs were bent at angles that didn't look right. Its head tilted slightly, as if it was studying us. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. And then, without warning, it lunged. My dad slammed the hatch shut just in time, the impact echoing through the hallway as something crashed against the other side. We both stumbled back, frozen in disbelief. There was silence again. Complete, suffocating silence. We called the police, but by the time they arrived and searched the attic, there was nothing there. But they did find something, like something had been trying to get through. My house has a layout that most people don't understand the first time they see it. It's not huge or anything, just oddly built. The front entrance isn't directly exposed like most houses. Instead, there's this narrow exterior corridor built into the structure itself. You walk between two walls of the house for a few steps before reaching the actual front door. It's covered overhead, almost like a tunnel, but still technically outside. My bedroom sits right next to that corridor. If I lean out of bed and look through my window, I can see straight down that hallway to the front door. Anyone standing there would have their back turned to me. They wouldn't even know I was watching unless they turned around. I've always liked that. Ever since I was a kid, I'd peek through the curtain whenever someone rang the doorbell. It felt like having a hidden camera, safe, controlled. I could decide whether or not I wanted to be seen. A few weeks ago, that little habit turned into something I wish I never had. My parents were out of town for a few days, so I had the house to myself. The first night was quiet. I stayed up late watching movies, ordered food, nothing unusual, the kind of peaceful silence you only notice when you're alone. The second night was different. I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone, when I heard something outside. At first, I thought it was just the wind, a faint scraping sound, like something brushing against concrete. It was subtle, but it didn't feel random. I muted my phone and listened. The sound came again, this time clearer. It was coming from the front of the house, from that corridor. I sat up slowly, staring toward the window. My room was dark, so I knew if anyone was out there, they wouldn't be able to see me unless I moved too suddenly. For a few seconds, everything went quiet. Then I heard it, a soft tapping, not on my window, on the front door. It was slow, controlled, almost polite. 3 taps. Then silence. Then 3 more. I felt this immediate tightness in my chest. It was late, way too late for someone to be knocking like that. No doorbell, no calling out, just tapping. I told myself it could be someone at the wrong house, maybe a delivery driver confused about the address. But something about the way they knocked didn't match that idea at all. It felt patient, like they knew someone was inside. I slid out of bed as quietly as I could and stepped closer to the window. My hand hovered over the curtain for a moment before I finally pulled it back just enough to look through. There was someone standing at the door. I could only see their back. They were completely still. No shifting weight, no checking their phone, nothing. Just standing there, facing the door like a statue. I watched them for maybe 10 seconds, trying to figure out what they were doing. Waiting, I guess. But it didn't make sense. Most people would knock again or ring the bell. Then, slowly, they raised their hand and tapped again. 3 times. Same pattern. I felt a chill run through me. There was something off about the rhythm. Too precise. Too intentional. I kept watching, trying to make out more details, but the lighting in the corridor was dim. I couldn't see their face or what they were wearing clearly. Then, without warning, they stopped, their hand lowered, and their head tilted slightly to the side. I froze. It didn't look like a normal movement. It was slow, stiff, like they were listening for something. For me. Before I could react, they started turning around. I dropped down instantly, crouching beneath the window. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. I stayed completely still, barely even breathing. Seconds passed. Maybe longer. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear them leave. That was the worst part. After what felt like forever, I forced myself to stand up again. Very slowly, I reached for the curtain and pulled it back just a fraction. At first, I didn't see anything. The corridor looked empty. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Then I noticed something. The front door. It was slightly open, just a crack. My stomach dropped. I knew for a fact I had locked it earlier. I always did when I was home alone. I could feel the panic rising in my chest, that horrible realization creeping in. I leaned closer to the glass, trying to see better into the dark corridor, and that's when something moved, right in front of the window, so close I couldn't even process it at first. A face, pressing against the glass from the outside. I stumbled back, hitting the edge of my bed as a scream caught in my throat. I barely got a glimpse of it, but it was enough. The skin looked wrong, too tight in some places, too loose in others. The eyes, I don't even know how to describe them. They didn't look like they were focused on anything human. I scrambled backward, grabbing my phone with shaking hands. Before I could dial anything, I heard something from the hallway. Inside the house, a soft sound, like footsteps. Slow, dragging. It had been unlocked from the inside.